The desert stretched endless in every direction, a sea of golden sand under a burning sun. The air shimmered with heat. Broken towers and ruined domes stood half buried in the dunes, silent remains of an ancient alien city. No bird flew here. No water flowed. Only wind whispered across the stone. A lone human soldier moved slowly through this wasteland. His boots sank in the sand, his face covered in dust. He was tired, wounded, and alone, but his eyes kept searching. He had been in battles before, but this place felt different, strange, watching. Then he heard it. At first it was faint, carried on the wind. A sound soft and strange. Not the sound of a machine. Not the cry of any animal he knew. It was more delicate, almost like a child's voice, weak, trembling, broken. The soldier froze. His heart began to beat faster. He turned his head, listening carefully. Again, the sound came. A cry, a plea. Somewhere close, hidden among the ruins. Cautiously, he moved toward the noise. Step by step, he crossed the sand, his hand resting on the worn grip of his weapon. He didn't know what waited for him. A trap, an alien beast, an enemy scout. The desert held many dangers, and he had learned never to trust silence. The sound grew clearer. It was not mechanical. It was alive. It was. Frightened, he reached a crumbled archway of stone. Beyond it lay a broken chamber, half buried under the sand. Shadows filled the cracks, and inside, something stirred. The cry came again, soft but urgent, like the voice of someone who had almost lost hope. The soldier stepped inside Dot, and then he saw her. A girl, no, not human. Her skin was pale lavender, smooth and flawless even under the dirt of the ruins. Her long silver-white hair caught the sunlight, glowing faintly as if holding light within itself. Her eyes, wide and violet, looked straight at him. She was small, young, fragile. She wore strange clothes torn and covered with dust. Her body trembled as she tried to push herself back against the stone wall. Too weak to move further. For a moment, the soldier could not breathe. He had seen many alien creatures during his service, some terrifying, some strange, but never one like this. She looked both unearthly and beautiful, delicate yet alive with something he could not name. Their eyes locked. She gave a small, broken sound, a cry not of anger, but of fear and desperation. She reached one hand weakly toward him, fingers trembling, then let it fall as if even that effort was too much. The soldier's chest tightened. In that instant, he understood she was not a threat. She was not an enemy. She was a child in need. He moved closer, slowly, carefully. "It's all right," he whispered, though he knew she could not understand his words. He knelt beside her, lowering his weapon. His hands were steady as he reached out. She flinched at first, then froze, watching him with wide, fearful eyes. Gently, he lifted her. She was light, far too light, as if she had not eaten in days. Her body shook in his arms. She pressed weakly against his chest, eyes half closing, as though finally allowing herself to rest. The soldier looked around the ruins. The place felt wrong. He had the sense that someone or something had left her here on purpose. To die, to be found? He did not know. But he knew one thing with certainty. Leaving her was not an option. As he carried her out into the sunlight, the desert wind picked up, blowing sand across the ruins. The sound echoed like whispers of 1,000 voices, voices from a dead city that once stood tall. He looked down at the girl in his arms. She was silent now, her breathing shallow but steady. Her head rested against him, her hair shining like silver threads under the golden sun. The soldier tightened his grip. He did not know who she was. He did not know why she was here. But he knew this. He had found her, and that meant he would protect her. Far above, in the burning sky, a shadow moved fast, mechanical, circling. The soldier's eyes narrowed. He pulled her close and stepped back into cover among the stones. Something was searching for her, and he was not about to give her up. The soldier held the alien girl close against his chest, keeping low among the ruins. The shadow above circled again, its engines humming like a hungry predator. Dust and sand lifted with every pass, sweeping over the broken stones. He pressed, his back against a cracked wall, steadying his breath, listening. The girl stirred weakly, her hand clutching at the fabric of his uniform. Her violet eyes opened for only a moment before closing again, too weak to stay awake. She trusted him now, though she didn't know who he was, or even what his words meant. Trust had been written in her gaze when he lifted her from the dust. That was enough. A beam of light flashed across the sand. The soldier ducked down, pulling the girl tighter into his arms. The machine was searching, and it wasn't alone. From the horizon, more faint lights flickered in the haze. His jaw tightened. This was no accident. Whoever wanted her had sent a hunt. He moved quickly, crouching, his boots silent on the stone. Through the gaps in the broken walls, he slipped, carrying her deeper into the ruins. The once great city was now nothing but shattered memories, but its narrow halls and broken pillars offered him cover. Every shadow became a shield. Every turn could be safety or danger. A sudden noise echoed, metal against stone. He froze, holding his breath. Another machine, smaller this time, crawled over the sand like an insect, its red eye glowing. It scanned the ground, its movements sharp, efficient. If it spotted him, the larger hunter above would swoop in. The soldier gently shifted the girl, laying her against the wall for only a heartbeat. He raised his weapon, aimed carefully, and fired once. The blast cracked the silence, striking the machine's eye. Sparks flew, and it collapsed into the sand with a hiss of smoke. The girl opened her eyes again at the sound, startled, but when she saw him standing guard before her, weapon still ready, she seemed calmer. She whispered something in her language, soft and broken. He couldn't understand, but he felt the meaning. A thank you. He picked her up again and pressed on. The ruins grew darker as he descended into a half-buried chamber. Ancient carvings glowed faintly on the walls, symbols of a people long forgotten. He could feel the weight of history pressing in on him, but there was no time to wonder. He needed shelter. He found a small hollow beneath a collapsed roof. It was barely large enough for the two of them, but it was hidden, shielded from the scanning lights above. He carried the girl inside and laid her gently on the stone floor. Her breathing was shallow, her body cold. She needed water, food, rest, things he barely had for himself. He pulled a flask from his pack and pressed it carefully to her lips. At first, she resisted, too weak to drink, but then she swallowed. Drops of water sliding past her lips. Color touched her cheeks again, faint but real. She opened her eyes, watching him with a mix of fear and fragile hope. The soldier gave her a small nod, as if to say, "You're safe." Outside, the machines still searched, their lights sweeping across the ruins. Their sound grew fainter for now, but he knew they would not give up. Whoever wanted her would not stop until they had her. He looked at her again, her hair spread like silver across the stone, catching even the dim light. She did not belong in the dirt. She did not deserve this fear. He sat beside her, weapon in his lap, eyes fixed on the shadows beyond. Every sense stayed sharp, every sound pulled at his nerves. The desert was no longer empty. It was alive with enemies he could not see. Hours passed like this. The girl drifted in and out of sleep, whispering words in her alien tongue. Sometimes she reached toward him in her dreams, as if afraid he would leave. He never moved far. He stayed by her side, a silent guardian in the night. When dawn finally broke, the desert was painted in fire and gold. The machines had gone for now, leaving silence in their place. The soldier stood at the edge of the ruins, scanning the horizon. Far away, faint trails of dust rose into the air, signs of movement. Not machines this time, something larger, something coming. He returned to the girl, lifting her carefully into his arms again. She was still weak, but her eyes opened wider now, watching him with more strength. She did not speak his language, but she did not need to. In her gaze was trust. The soldier stepped into the sunlight once more. He did not know what the day would bring, but he knew the hunt was not over. The machines were only the beginning. Far across the desert, unseen by him, the tribe was already on its way. The morning light spread across the desert, warm and endless. The soldier walked with steady steps, the alien girl resting against his chest. Her breathing was stronger now, though her body was still frail. Every few moments she opened her violet eyes, looked at him, then closed them again as if the effort was too heavy. He kept moving, searching for higher ground, a place where he could see danger before it came. He found a ridge of stone and climbed slowly, careful not to jostle her. At the top, the land stretched in every direction, dunes rising and falling like waves. In the distance, thin trails of dust twisted upward. He watched them with sharp eyes. Not machines this time, he thought. Something larger. Perhaps riders. Perhaps worse. Whatever it was coming closer. He turned his gaze to the girl. She had shifted in his arms, her silver hair catching the light like threads of fire. She blinked at him, lips moving softly. Words came, gentle and strange, spoken in a language he could not understand. She reached a hand weakly to touch his chest, right above his heart. Then she pulled it back, closing her fingers as if trying to explain something without words. The soldier studied her. He had seen fear in many faces, seen anger, desperation, even hatred. But her eyes carried something else, trust, a fragile hope that he would keep her safe. He nodded to her, a silent promise, though she could not know his language either. He carried her back down the ridge into the shelter of a half-buried ruin. The walls there were broken, but they offered shade from the burning sun. He set her down carefully on a smooth stone and sat beside her, pulling a ration from his pack. It was not much, only dry pieces of food and another flask of water. He broke off small parts, offering them to her. At first she refused, turning her head weakly. But he pressed the food gently into her hand and motioned for her to eat. She studied him with curious eyes, then brought it to her lips. She chewed slowly, every bite looking like effort, but she ate. When he gave her water, she drank more than before, her throat no longer rejecting it. The soldier watched her closely. She was stronger than he expected. Fragile in body, yes, but there was resilience in her eyes. She had survived something terrible to be left alone in the desert. The sun climbed higher, heat pressing down on them. He laid his weapon across his knees and rested his back against the stone wall, eyes fixed on the horizon. The girl sat beside him now, leaning on his arm for support. She whispered more words, her voice soft and musical, like a river flowing over stones. He couldn't understand, but he listened, nodding slowly. Somehow, that seemed enough for her, for the first time in many days. The soldier felt something he had nearly forgotten. Not just duty, not survival, connection. This alien child, this fragile being so different from him, made him feel human again. Hours passed. The desert wind carried whispers across the ruins, and he stayed alert, watching. The girl, however, had grown more curious. She pointed to the sky, tracing the shape of clouds with her finger. She touched the ancient carvings on the stone walls, her lips moving as if naming them in her language. She even reached toward his weapon, eyes wide with innocent curiosity. He gently pushed it away, shaking his head. She laughed, a small sound, weak but real. It startled him. He had not heard laughter in weeks, maybe months. For a moment, the weight of war lifted. But peace never lasted. As the sun began to set, the horizon shifted. He saw them, dark shapes, moving in the haze. Not machines, figures, dozens of them. They marched in rhythm, their armor glinting with gold even from this distance. Tall, proud, unshaken by the desert. The soldier's breath tightened. He had guessed it was not over, but this was something greater, a force, a people. The girl saw them too. Her eyes widened. She spoke quickly now, her voice trembling. She pointed toward the distant figures, then pressed her small hand against his chest again. Shaking her head, fear returned to her face, stronger than before. He looked down at her, then back at the approaching figures. He tightened his grip on his weapon. The machines had been hunters, but these were not machines. They were alive, organized, powerful, and they were coming directly toward him. The girl clung to his arm now, whispering words again and again, pleading. He could not understand, but he knew what she wanted. She did not want him to fight them. She wanted him to run, but he did not move. His eyes narrowed as he studied the approaching line. Their steps were measured, their formation to precise. This was no random band of raiders. It was a tribe of warriors, and by the way they carried themselves, they had come with purpose. The desert wind grew colder as the sun fell lower, shadows stretching long across the sand. The soldier held the girl close, his body tense, his mind racing. He had no choice now. He had stepped into something far bigger than himself. The girl buried her face against him, her body trembling. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steady, firm. He did not speak, but his silence carried a vow. Whatever came next, he would face it. He had saved her once. He would not let her be taken. The tribe drew closer. Their golden armor caught the dying light, their eyes glowing faintly, their movements sharp and unbroken. The desert no longer felt empty. It was alive with destiny, and it was walking straight toward them. The ground trembled softly under their steps. From the haze of the desert, the figures came into full view. Dozens of tall women walked in perfect formation, their armor shining like molten gold in the last light of the setting sun. Their faces were calm yet unreadable, eyes glowing faintly as if lit from within. Each step echoed with discipline. Each movement carried power. The soldier stood still at the edge of the ruins, the alien girl in his arms, her body pressed close to him, trembling, her violet eyes wide with fear. She whispered quickly in her own language, her voice urgent, her hands gripping his chest as though to pull him back. He didn't move. His gaze stayed fixed on the approaching tribe. They did not rush. They did not threaten. They came with silence, as if the desert itself carried them forward. Dust rose around their legs, glowing orange in the fading light. The soldier's breath was steady, but his muscles stayed tight, ready for anything. His weapon hung by his side, but he made no move to lift it. The line of warriors stopped a short distance away, their formation spreading slightly. In the center, one stepped forward. She was taller than the rest, her armor heavier, layered with ornate patterns that glimmered like fire. Her long hair, white as snow, flowed behind her, untouched by the desert wind. Her eyes, sharp and glowing, locked onto him immediately. The soldier held his ground. The alien girl buried her face against him, her small hands clutching tighter. The leader's gaze moved from him to the girl, then back again. Silence stretched between them, heavy, filled with meaning. At last, the leader raised one hand. The entire tribe stopped, perfectly still, as though her command alone held them in place. Her voice broke the silence clear, firm and deep, carrying easily across the sand. He could not understand the words, but the sound alone was enough to chill his spine. It was not anger, it was judgment. The girl in his arms lifted her head, answering in her own broken voice. She spoke fast, weak but determined, her words spilling out like water. The leader's eyes narrowed, listening. The tribe shifted faintly, a ripple of reaction running through them. Their weapons gleamed, but none were raised. The soldier could only watch, his jaw tight, his grip firm around the girl. He did not know what she said, but her tone carried fear and desperation, and the leader's calm expression revealed nothing. Then the leader stepped closer, slow, deliberate. Her footsteps echoed in the soldier's chest. She came within a few paces, her golden armor reflecting the fire of the sunset. Her presence was overwhelming, regal, commanding. She stopped, staring directly at him. The soldier straightened his shoulders. He had faced generals, monsters, and machines, but this was different. Her eyes pierced through him, weighing his soul. He shifted the girl higher in his arms, making his stance clear. He would not give her up. The leader tilted her head slightly, as if studying him. Then she spoke again, softer now, but her words carried strange weight, like ancient tones wrapped in authority. She extended her hand not to him, but to the girl. The girl whimpered, pressing her face against his chest again, refusing to look. Her grip on him grew tighter. The soldier's eyes hardened. He shook his head once, a simple gesture, but it was enough. He would not hand her over. The tribe stirred, a rustle of movement as though preparing for action. But the leader raised her hand again, and silence returned instantly. She kept her gaze locked on him. For a long moment, they simply stared at one another, two guardians, two wills, neither yielding. Finally, the leader lowered her hand and spoke once more. Her voice carried a note he hadn't heard before. Not anger, not threat, something else. Recognition, perhaps, respect. The girl lifted her head slowly, eyes wet, voice trembling as she answered. She reached one small hand toward the leader, her fingers shaking. Then she pulled back again, hiding her face against the soldier's shoulder. The leader watched this carefully, then nodded once. She turned her head to the tribe behind her, giving a short command. The formation shifted, the warriors lowering their weapons slightly. Though their eyes never left him, the soldier stood motionless, unsure what had just passed between them. He had expected attack or demand, but instead, something unspoken hung in the air. A decision was being made, one he could not yet understand. The leader stepped back, her gaze still on him. She spoke a final word, sharp and commanding. The tribe moved, circling slowly round him and the girl, their golden armor shimmering in the last light of day, not closing in to strike, but not moving away either. Surrounding them, as if guarding a sacred fire, the soldier's breath was slow, his grip steady. He did not trust them, but he felt the weight of the moment. Something had shifted. This was no simple hunt, no accident. The girl in his arms meant something to them. The desert sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows. The sky burned red and gold. The tribe of warrior women stood all around him, silent, unbroken, their eyes glowing in the dusk. The leader raised her hand once more, pointing not at him, but at the girl. Her voice was low but firm. The soldier did not understand the words, but deep inside, he knew the meaning. This was only the beginning. The circle of warriors tightened. Their armor glowed faintly under the dying light, their eyes fixed on the human. Every breath of the desert wind carried silence heavy enough to crush. The soldier stood tall, the alien girl in his arms, his weapon at his side but not raised. He would not fire first. He would not abandon her. The leader stepped closer again, her presence heavy as a storm. She looked from the girl to the human, her expression unreadable. For a moment, the desert seemed to hold its breath. Then she spoke slow, sharp words in her alien tongue. The sound cut the silence like a blade. The girl reacted instantly. She twisted in his arms, her eyes wide, shaking her head. She answered in her weak, trembling voice, clutching tighter to the soldier's chest. He could not understand the language, but he understood the meaning. She was pleading with them, pleading not to be taken. The leader narrowed her eyes, her glowing gaze shifting back to the human. She raised her hand and motioned toward him. At once, 3 warriors stepped forward, their golden armor catching the fire of sunset. Their weapons gleamed. The soldier's heart pounded. He shifted his stance, holding the girl tighter, his weapon lifting slightly. Not to attack, but to warn. His voice was steady, low, filled with defiance. "She stays with me." They could not know his words, but they understood his tone. The warriors halted, their steps slowing, their eyes narrowing. The leader studied him with cold interest. This was no ordinary defiance. This was a man standing against a force far greater than himself. For a long moment, no one moved. The girl's breathing grew faster, her hands clutching at him as if her life depended on his refusal. The tribe waited. The desert wind howled between the ruins, carrying dust across their faces. Then the leader spoke again, her voice rising. It was a command. The tribe answered with a low sound, almost like a chant, their voices blending together in eerie unity. The desert itself seemed to vibrate with their power. The soldier braced himself. If they charged, he would fight. He knew he could not win, but he would not surrender her. Not now. Not ever. And yet, the attack never came. The leader raised her hand again, and the chant ceased instantly. She stepped closer, so close now that the soldier could see the lines of age and strength on her face, the faint scars across her golden armor. She spoke once more, slower this time, her words carrying weight. The girl in his arms answered, her voice breaking, tears welling in her eyes. She reached one trembling hand toward the leader, then pulled it back quickly, pressing against the soldier's chest again. The leader's expression shifted, only slightly. Not anger, something else, something hidden. The soldier's eyes locked with hers. In that moment, no language was needed. She was testing him, testing his will, testing the bond between human and alien child. He tightened his grip on the girl, straightened his back, and met the leader's gaze without flinching. His silence spoke louder than words. "I will not abandon her. If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The leader studied him for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she lowered her hand. Her voice came soft this time, almost a whisper, but it carried through the still air. She turned to her warriors, gave a command, and they lowered their weapons as one. The soldier blinked, unsure what had just shifted. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide with confusion and hope. The tribe no longer advanced. They had pulled back, their formation loosening slightly, though they still surrounded him. The leader spoke again, but not to him, to the girl. Her words were gentler now, almost questioning. The girl answered, weak but certain, her small hand gripping the soldier's uniform as if declaring her choice. The tribe reacted with murmurs, their voices low, uncertain. The leader turned back to the soldier. Her glowing eyes studied him once more. Then she nodded slowly. It was not surrender. It was recognition. The soldier lowered his weapon slightly, but did not let go of the girl. His heart still raced, his muscles still tense, but something had changed. He was no longer only a stranger in their eyes. He was something else, something harder to define. The circle of warriors broke slightly, leaving space. The leader stepped back to rejoin her people, her presence still heavy, but no longer threatening. She raised her hand once more, pointing to the horizon where the desert stretched into darkness. Her voice came firm, filled with warning. The soldier followed her gaze. He saw nothing yet, but he understood. Whatever hunted the girl was still out there. The machines were only the beginning. The leader's eyes locked with his one last time. Then she turned, her warriors moving with her, their formation shifting but not leaving entirely. They remained nearby, shadows of gold in the fading light, watching him, watching her. The soldier stood still, the girl clutched against him, his thoughts heavy. He had faced death, and yet here he stood, alive, with a fragile child in his arms and the eyes of a whole tribe upon him. He had not given her up. He had passed their test. The desert grew dark, stars appearing one by one above the ruins. The girl whispered softly, leaning against him, her words faint but full of relief. He could not understand, but he felt the meaning. She was safe. For now and tomorrow, the real truth would begin to unfold. The night was cold in the desert. Stars burned like silver fires above, and the ruins cast long shadows across the sand. The soldier sat with his back against a broken wall, the alien girl resting in his arms. She had fallen asleep at last, her breathing soft and steady, her silver-white hair glowing faintly in the starlight. Round them, the tribe of warrior women stood like statues. Their golden armor reflected the faint light of the moons. They had not attacked, but they had not left either. They remained near, watching in silence, as if waiting for something. The soldier's eyes never closed. His weapon rested across his knees, and his senses stayed sharp. He had been tested before, and he knew another test was coming. These women were not random hunters. They had purpose, discipline, and unity. And from the way they looked at the girl, he knew she mattered far more than he yet understood. When the horizon began to glow with the first light of dawn, the leader of the tribe stepped forward again. Her steps were silent, yet every warrior shifted as she moved, their formation adjusting around her. She stopped a few paces away from the human, her tall figure outlined in gold by the rising sun. The soldier rose slowly, careful not to wake the girl. He held her steady in his arms and met the leader's gaze. No words passed between them for a long moment. Only the sound of wind across the desert filled the air. Then the leader spoke. Her voice was deep, commanding, yet softer than before. The words carried a weight that made even the tribe listen with full attention. The soldier did not understand, but the girl stirred, her eyes opening. As if pulled awake by the sound, the girl answered, her voice weak but clear. She looked from the leader to the soldier, her small hands clutching his uniform tightly. Her words came fast, almost desperate, as though she wanted both sides to hear her truth. The leader listened, her glowing eyes fixed on the child. Her expression did not change, but the silence of the warriors around her spoke volumes. The girl said something again, louder this time, then buried her face against the soldier's chest. As if sealing her choice, the leader lowered her head slightly, almost in thought. Then she looked directly at the soldier and spoke a single word, sharp and certain. She repeated it, pointing first to the girl, then to him. He shook his head. He didn't understand, but the meaning was clear enough to chill his blood. The girl was not just anyone. Another warrior stepped forward, carrying something wrapped in cloth. She opened it carefully, revealing an emblem of gold and crystal, glowing faintly within her light. The tribe murmured in low voices as the leader lifted it high for him to see. The emblem bore the same strange carvings the soldier had seen in the ruins. Etched deep into its surface, the girl gasped softly, her eyes fixed on the emblem. She reached toward it with trembling fingers, whispering words in her tongue. The leader lowered the symbol slightly, watching her with calm certainty. The soldier's mind raced. He did not know their language, but he could put the pieces together. The girl was not a random child. She was someone of power, of blood, of legacy. A daughter of this tribe. Maybe more. The leader spoke again, her voice steady. She pointed once more at the girl, then at the emblem, then at him. Her words carried a strange tone now, not command, not warning, but declaration. The soldier clenched his jaw. He looked down at the girl. She stared up at him with wide, tearful eyes, shaking her head faintly, as if begging him not to hand her over. His chest tightened. He understood now why the machines had hunted her, why the tribe had come, why the desert itself seemed alive with danger. She was not ordinary. She was a key to something much larger. The leader extended her hand again, this time not harshly, but firmly. A choice lay between them. The soldier could give her back, return her to her people, to her destiny, or he could continue to shield her, a stranger standing against an entire world for a long time. He said nothing. The desert wind carried the silence, heavy, endless. The tribe waited, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Finally, the soldier shifted the girl higher in his arms, holding her close. His voice was quiet, steady, meant more for her than anyone else. "I've got you. I'm not letting go." The girl closed her eyes, relief softening her face. She pressed her forehead against his chest, clinging to him with all the strength she had left. The leader's expression hardened, but there was no surprise in her eyes. She had expected this. She lowered her hand, gave a command to her warriors, and they stepped back as one. Not retreating, not advancing, simply holding their ground. The sun rose higher, painting the desert gold. The soldier stood firm, the girl safe in his arms, his will unbroken. He had made his choice. The leader spoke one final time, her words sharp and cold, but not cruel. Then she turned, her armor blazing in the sunlight. The tribe shifted, their formation breaking slightly, but they did not leave. They stayed close, watching him still. The soldier understood the truth in that moment. He had not won their trust, not yet. He had only stepped into the center of a storm far greater than himself. The girl's identity was bigger than his protection. She carried the weight of a people, maybe even a future. But he also knew something else. Whatever destiny she carried, whatever danger chased her, he would not abandon her. His vow had been made the moment he found her in the ruins. And no tribe, no machine, no army would change that. As the desert wind swept across the ruins, the human stood unshaken. The girl clung to him, the tribe surrounded him, and the future waited just beyond the horizon. The sun climbed higher, flooding the desert with burning light. Heat shimmered across the dunes, yet the soldier felt only the weight of the moment. The alien girl lay against him, her small hands gripping his uniform tightly, as if afraid he might disappear. Around them, the tribe of warrior women stood unmoving, their golden armor blazing under the sky. They did not speak. They did not attack. They simply watched. Their silence was heavier than war drums. The leader's eyes locked with his. She had tested him, judged him, measured him against her people's ways. And though she had not spoken in words he could understand, the message was clear. The human had stepped into their story. Whether as enemy or ally was yet to be decided. The soldier adjusted his grip on the girl. He could feel her heartbeat, faint but steady, pressed against his chest. He thought of the first time he had heard her cry in the ruins, the way her violet eyes had met his with fear and hope. He had chosen then. He chose now. He would stand for her, no matter what came. A ripple moved through the tribe as one of the warriors approached the leader, bowing slightly, whispering in their language. The leader's gaze shifted toward the horizon. Dust rose far in the distance, fast, sharp, and unnatural. The machines were returning. The tribe stirred. Their formation shifted, shields lifted, weapons gleaming. Their unity was terrifying and beautiful all at once. The leader raised her hand, and silence fell again, her command stronger than the desert wind. She looked back at the soldier and the girl. For the first time, her expression changed. Not cold, not unreadable, but certain. She spoke a single word, firm and direct, pointing to him, then to the machines on the horizon. He understood. Not the language, but the intent. A choice no longer lay before him. The battle was coming, and he was part of it now. The girl stirred, lifting her head weakly. Her eyes filled with fear when she saw the distant shadows racing closer. But when she looked back at the human, something steadier replaced it. She whispered softly, her alien voice trembling but clear. He could not understand the word, but he felt its meaning. "Don't let go." He set her down carefully against the stone wall of the ruins, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. She clung to his fingers for a moment, reluctant, then let go. He rose, his weapon in hand, his face set in stone. The tribe closed ranks around him. For the first time, they did not push him back or threaten him. They accepted his place among them, at least for now. The leader gave a command, and the warriors formed a wide circle, shields ready, weapons aimed toward the horizon. The soldier stepped into the line, his place clear, a lone human among giants of gold, standing for a child who should never have survived the desert. The machines came fast, crawling across the sand like predators, their metal bodies glinting in the light. More followed behind them, flying low with harsh engines that screamed across the sky. Dust exploded in their wake, and the desert trembled with their numbers. The girl's wide eyes watched from her shelter as the human lifted his weapon and braced himself. The warriors of the tribe raised their own, voices rising in a chant that shook the air, a song of defiance that had carried through generations. The machines closed in. The desert erupted with fire. Weapons roared. Shields clashed, and the tribe met the machines head-on. Golden armor shone as blades cut through steel. The human fired, each shot precise, every blast dropping an enemy before it could strike. The tribe fought with unity, but he fought with something else: desperation, will, and a promise he would never break. The girl pressed her hands over her ears, her body trembling, but her eyes never left him. In the chaos, he was not swallowed. He stood tall, moving with the rhythm of survival, guarding not only himself but the gap in the line where she was hidden. Every time a machine broke through, his weapon met it first. The leader fought like a storm, her golden blade tearing through steel with strength that defied her frame. And still, in the midst of war, her eyes glanced toward the human. She saw what he was, not alien, not kin, but something rare, something that would not bend, even against the impossible. The battle raged until the last machine fell, its body broken and burning in the sand. Silence followed, heavy and final. The tribe stood breathing hard, their armor marked with dust and smoke. The human lowered his weapon slowly, his chest heaving, his face streaked with sweat and dirt. He turned at once to the girl. She was still there, safe, her violet eyes wide with awe. When he lifted her again, she clung to him without hesitation, whispering softly. He did not know her words, but he felt their weight. Gratitude, trust, something deeper. The leader approached, her armor scratched but her stance strong. She studied him, then spoke. This time, her voice carried no test, no command, only recognition. She raised her hand, clenched it into a fist, and pressed it over her heart. The tribe followed, each warrior striking their chest in unison. The soldier stood still, the girl in his arms, unsure of the ritual but feeling its power. It was not surrender. It was not victory. It was acknowledgement. The leader nodded once, sharp and final, before turning back to her people. The desert was quiet now, but the future was anything but. The human looked at the girl. She looked back at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the rising sun. He had saved her life, and in doing so, stepped into a story larger than either of them could yet see. The desert wind carried the silence of that truth. He held her closer, unshaken, ready for whatever came next.